The whole question of, the Russian-Ukraine situation has, made me kind of think about other things, about, the work I do. I work in translation systems, and not just text to text, but speech to speech as well. And so I just kind of want to give a short little, testimony about that, and how I think I've adjusted my adjusted my thinking over the past quarter of a century. So, 30 years ago, I was involved in the Caterpillar Machine Translation Project, which is also new authoring. It was also authoring environment too, and translations. So I got hired into as a trainer and as a linguist for the authors and for all the translators. And that led to, within 2 years, Carnegie Mellon University gave me a call one day. There wasn't a job opening. They had a job, but no one knew it was open. And they gave me a call one day. And they said, Jeff, we've been working for you a couple of years for translation systems. We know you know the machine translation, all the automated translation stuff. But we heard down the hall from a colleague that you actually speak a French Creole language. I said, yeah. He said, we want to hire you now. We want you because you are actually the only person on the planet. Okay. They didn't have to say the only person on the planet. They just had to say the only person, because it's true. It was the only person on the planet that actually understood. Well, there was one person, but they didn't know who he was. And I knew who he was, but I never found him. So he wrote some thesis in 1975 so that I never got to meet him. So, but at that point in time, I was probably the only person that knew how to do this. They wanted me to join a project called Diplomat, which is the successor of Pangloss, to build a speech-to-speech translation system, rapid development, rapid deployment for English and Haitian Creole, speech-to-speech. And there were other languages too. There were other ones. Korean, well, actually, Croatian and Bosnian and Serbian. So we called it Serbo-Croatian, but I don't want to get in a debate of that. No, it's just Serbia. We had actually had a Serb, a Croat, and a Bosnian all together working in the lab doing the databases. So I mean, they were working together so they could understand each other's dialects. It's fine, But we had, so I got hired. They called me, and I was there in 15 days. Literally 2 weeks later, we moved the family, and we were there. And as time went on, they probably mentioned it was military, but I was actually funded as I began to, we got into more. I began to find out who the funders were, because we had mentioned the funders in the articles and the conference papers that we were talking about, okay? That we were mentioning what we're doing. We read about 20 articles, 15, 20, 15, I can't remember how many I actually wrote when I was there, but that kind of number, lots of articles, conference papers. And we mentioned the funding from the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. Defense, it keeps changing the name, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. Sometimes called ARPA, sometimes called DARPA, and it keeps changing names. That's okay. That happens. And we were working closely with the U.S. Army Research Labs, okay, for this speech-to-speech translation system. They were doing some scanning systems too, and document scanning and with translation, all kinds of stuff. So I did that for 2 years. But the context and the way we were doing it, and we were usually saying it was for humanitarian aid, because there's kind of that. I mean, actually, military intervention is not always. It's to support, humanitarian aid, disaster response kind of situations. That's usually what it is. It's for crowd control, that kind of stuff. It's not military intervention. Isn't always just for military reasons. It's for, crowd control, policing, that kind of stuff, to help a situation that's kind of difficult. So we actually built the whole thing around those kinds of scenarios, because we had to have scenarios of what we were trying to achieve with the actual doing the translation, doing the demos and stuff, okay, to make it work. So it was a lot of those police checkpoints and asking questions and the kind of, and asking how people, the same kind of doing doctor patient doctor patient kind of dialogue, where it's just anybody getting checked on something, for whatever reason, or any passport, which you, do you have your ID card, you know, or some things like, are there any mines in the area you're going to step on and blow up, you know, that kind of stuff, you know. It just was all kinds of stuff, that those kinds of scenarios, basic communication, really basic communication for, you know, basic stuff. Um, and it was bilingual, it was bidirectional, it had editing built into it. It was a really cool system. It was all you could actually edit on the tactile. This was 25 years ago, tactile screen. Okay, we all trying to do now. Hey, this was way 10 years behind, before the curve, before it hit, before all the hype and stuff. But as we began to talk about that, now I didn't mention who the funders were a lot, because that's kind of a delicate situation, right? Then in 2010, when we released, I got us to release the Haitian Creole data for a third of the data. I'll say about a third of it to release it out during the Haitian, just after the Haitian earthquake, the major earthquake aftermath, and then Microsoft Translate and Google Translate got it pretty quickly. And Microsoft Translate won the race to actually finally get the system up in production. Google Translate was like a week later. But I get interviewed by Voice of America like a week after that. And the thing they announce, and they're putting the highlight, is that I had been sent, they announced in the introduction, you know, of the audio and the blog. It was a blog and it was an audio, it was the transcript and everything. And they announced that I had been sent to Haiti on a U.S. defense military funded mission to go, you know, work on, do speech data collection for a speech to speech system. Okay, so it was pretty clearly stated that way. And over the years, you know, I have thought about this. I thought about the purpose of that system, and all about the whole kind of military enterprise. I'll call it that. And I've got family that's I've got extended family members that are in the different armed forces. So there's a bit of that too, and they all kind of tell all their buddies and, you know, colleagues that their brother, you know, built that cool kind of system that they had been told about, you know, that got sent to get tested and stuff. So the portable wearable system, or one of the predecessors of it, or that kind of thing, you know, because they've got them now. There's more than one, but now they would say, hey, my brother's the one that actually built the first one for all of us, you know, that kind of thing. So that kind of helped me times too when I would go meet military people. That would help me to relate to them. Honestly, you know, you got to kind of establish rapport, and so I'd kind of use that. That actually didn't work really well, to tell you the truth. But over the time, I've been watching the Iron Man series. I will be honest that the Iron Man movies have made me think. Tony Stark, even though it's a fictional character, the movies have made me think. They've really made me think about technology and the military use of it. And I did have an opportunity in 2010 again to potentially help the military. And I just did not, I was not in a position where I could do it. I was working for a company that was not interested in it for obvious reasons. They don't want to do military stuff. And I didn't want to leave my job, okay? And I didn't have enough things to be able to do it. And I just said, hey, I came back and said, look, I get this opportunity, and said, you know, there's a lot of money involved, but no one wanted to touch it. So I kind of said, too bad. I did say too bad to that one, mainly because the company I was working for didn't want to do it, okay? And I wasn't going to force anything. It wasn't core business. I'm not going to force anything. Oh, whatever. But over the years, another 12 years later, I have been, you know, continuing to think about this. You know, we are all people that we evolve, and kind of, you know, we evolve and how we think about things. And I gave a conference call. I gave a conference talk. Let's see, I got to think here. In 2015 at the ELIA, the European Language Industry Association, networking days in 2015 in April in France, in Lyon, France, about minority language, making a profitable business out of minority languages. And I kind of made a very provocative kind of talk because I actually challenged. It wasn't just say, "Hey, we can all go do this and it's great, great, great." I actually challenged people. Challenge people, and do you know what you're getting into? You know, because a lot of this stuff in working in minority language is built on trust, and you got to build trust. And I talked a lot about building trust, and that it's not something you buy. You can't buy trust. You got to build it, and it can take a decade or two to do this. Okay, for these languages, you got to prove to yourself that you're not there to exploit them, right? Like all of this happened in the colonization and decolonization, all the diamond trade and natural resources and all those kinds of things. So there has been a history of that, and I'm a historian. I would say I had the equivalent of a major in history, but I didn't have it all to be able to get another. They didn't offer a history degree at the institution I was at, so I didn't get the history part of it. But I probably actually got another history degree out of it too. So I really like history, and I believe that history is important to tell us things and teach us things. And I talk about anachronism a lot and all that, and comparative things that have happened in the past. And I think with time, during that talk in Lyon about that minority language, I used that recording of the Voice of America thing, and I brought it up. And I brought up what are the taboo things that in translation, what kind of taboo topics don't do. And I brought up, military, and I brought up pornography and other kinds of things that are kind of, some people consider as taboo, off limits, don't do it. And it was good because I brought up the ethics of translation. It was really, I was driving at the ethics of translation in that talk. Had multiple purposes. And I said in the talk that that was 5 years ago, and I still have the same perspective today. So I'll say, it hasn't evolved. In 25 years, I've had the same kind of perspective. After 20 years, 25 years, I've had the same perspective. Is that, or after the 20 years after, that if I was offered the same opportunity that had been offered to me in 25 years ago, to go be, the only person in the entire world that could actually help on a project for speech-to-speech translation, for text translation or speech-to-speech or whatever, anything that's related to that, even for a minority language, that was funded by a military institution. Would I do it? I would think really hard. I would honestly think very, very hard. And now I can do that. Probably back then it was a good opportunity for my career. It really was a good opportunity for my career, and it did boost my career, and it did set me on the map for what I'm doing today, and it made me famous, kind of famous for what I did, and gave me the credentials. It gave me a lot of credentials. I will be very honest with that. Okay, saying I worked at CMU is like, yeah, this is like, yeah. But I say now, if I had the same opportunity now at my age to be able to go do it, funded by the similar institutions, would I do it? I'm not sure. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes. And I don't know. I'm honestly, I don't know. I wish I had my mask off because you could see my gestures of things. I wish I could take the mask off, but I can't hear. And I think that it would be a decision where I would lose some sleep. I would actually lose some sleep on going through that decision, wondering, do I want to do it or not? Even if it was easy to do, even if there was, in those kind of situations, I would not be put in, I'm not going to be put on the front, be shot at. That's not kind of position it is when those things are. You're not working in those situations. You're not even taking the thing out to be deployed. It's just you're up early and upstream and doing the things and developing, and you find that it gets deployed and sent out and stuff. But I'm not going to be there in the. I had to give a lot of the situations where I talked about the 24 hours, the film series, the TV series, 24 hours, and all that, and having Jack Bauer with the phone. It's the phone the battery never goes dead. That kind of thing is going for 24 hours, and he's just there they're shooting the stuff, and those are the kind of situations where I brought up in some talks that's the kind of situation where these kind of translation systems are needed in those, but in for like other languages, the other hot languages, call that. And it's those kind of situations where you're pulling out the stuff and you're gonna ready to shoot the people to say what's your name, and you're just hoping that it's gonna translate right. But in those situations, and I've seen people kind of struggle in those kind of discussions. In those really struggle in those discussions too, because they say we don't want to kill people because these systems can. It's not the systems can kill the people. It's that the failure of the translation could result in a death if the answer is not appropriately is not interpreted as being the good answer. Let's say it that way, okay? And yes, it can lead to death. And it's a risky thing. And I kind of brought up in some of those discussions at some points in time, what do you do with, what would happen if like the people are wearing these, it's a wearable suit. Think of like Iron Man, okay, with the Jarvis inside, you have a translation system there and it's like doing this translation. And okay, Jarvis, Tony's got his, he's got his new element power supply, okay, but let's say you don't have that. Let's say that you're connecting to something else. It's not built in the system. You're depending on some, I've said it sometimes. I said, what happens if the Wi-Fi, what is, you're doing from a Wi-Fi hotspot in a tank, or do you have a satellite connection? How is this happening? Where's the connection happening to some kind of online translation processing, or is it built into the suit? Because the hard thing is actually running these things. Literally, where's the processing happening? We're getting better at that. We're getting better at it. But 12 years ago, we weren't quite there yet. Okay, we're still dealing with how do you run it on a local device thing. Okay, that was back. That was back when statistical machine translation was still kind of early on in the commercial products and things. I mean, deployable ones. We're getting better at that. How do we deal with the footprint? But we're still not there yet, and where do you do processing? A lot of things done in data centers, so how do you get the connection to the data center from the suit that the military personnel are wearing? So, and what happens if when I'm doing on the phone, it's like the connection goes down. What if the internet 4G connection or 5G connection goes down and the person responds and it doesn't connect and, the translation comes out? Do you shoot them still? That kind of thing. I'm kind of joking, but I'm not. So that's, that's what again, I don't know if I'd accept it if I had that opportunity today. And I have blown off a few people, to be truthful. I've told them that when they came to me and I was discussion, I kind of got pulled into some discussions. I didn't know I was going to be pulled into those discussions, and that's okay. But then I said, I've worked for your predecessors, and they didn't have a very good plan, and I had actually designed the whole thing. I had to design all the scenarios and stuff because they couldn't tell me what the actual requirements were, so I had to create my own requirements for that whole system. And for each of the languages. So it's kind of like I told them, you guys are used to doing projects, you're not used to doing products. And I'm used to doing products now. So I'm a lot more careful of what I do and what I promise. And so I've, kind of told people, go take a hike. I'm not kidding. And I could do that. And it didn't hurt me. And no one, there were I don't say there were threats, but there were statements like, we're going to call your CEO kind of thing. I'm not kidding. And I said, go ahead, because I don't want to do it. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm serious. So these are, I don't know if I do it today. So, so sorry I've taken some time to kind of, talk about that, but I thought it'd be good to kind of relate something that's very, yeah, it makes sense. So, and it's a very, these are things that are really hard to express, you know, it's ethics. It's all about ethics. It's really tough. Ethics is tough because there's never anything right or wrong. I took an ethics class in college, and I did a paper. I did a presentation on one ethical thing, and we had a whole series of papers. Each student had to do their own one, and some were really tough. And I took one that's kind of tough. I don't want to say what it is, um, but it's. In fact, I'll say what it is. I did an ethics paper about Bible smuggling. Okay, I actually did one on that. And that's kind of weird. It's kind of yeah. I did one on that because it's kind of a hard topic. That kind of thing. Do you lie for a better cause? Or withhold information for a better cause? What happens if you get in a situation, if you're asked if you've got something, you say no? That's ethics, okay? So ethics is a kind of difficult thing, and this comes down to this whole thing of ethics is important for this kind of question about the military, and again, there is no right or wrong in the majority of cases. Yeah, even if we think that things are right or wrong, yeah, that might. Yeah, I don't want to go into all the possible scenarios, but let's just say in the majority of cases, not. It's like the question of wearing the mask or not wearing the mask. Is it right or wrong? I mean, we don't know. We all have our opinions about it, okay? And I'm wearing it, so you know. And I know people that refused, and that people should we get the vaccinations or not? It's ethics. So, is it right or wrong? There are consequences. That's all. So, so the military thing and for transition systems, would I accept it? I don't know, and that's okay. And I would have the consequences of it. Probably not getting another cool job, but that's okay, because I don't have to have another cool job because I can have a cool job. So yeah, this is. But I could have a cooler job maybe, or maybe one that would make me lose more hair or get more gray hair because I already got it. I should show you the gray hair on my face, but you guys see my videos a lot, so it doesn't matter. Um, so, so thanks for listening, and thanks for going along this kind of storytelling of ethics, which I believe is a very important thing that all of us have to go through in all of our lives about certain topics. And it can go to all kinds of things. And I deal with my kids about, um, uh, if you get credited for something, or if you get, they give you the wrong drink, and rather than give you a small drink, he give you a big bottle of a drink rather than a small can. They made the mistake. Well, should you say it or not? That's ethics. So that's always a struggle. That's the kind of thing. So it's real life. So thanks for listening, and thanks for going on this. Thanks for listening to this testimony and about at least this topic that I've dealt with over my life and thought about, and I continue to think about, and will continue to think about. That's how it is. Thanks.